Researchers from Harvard spent 20 years tracking 90,000 people. And what they found is something most physicians will never bring up during your annual checkup: your blood type. That single letter you scribbled on a form years ago and promptly forgot is one of the most precise biological maps your body carries. Not for transfusions, for longevity, and the vast majority of men over 45 are sitting on this information, completely unused. Today we go through each blood type: O, A, B, and AB. And for each one, I'll give you the science behind it, and then the exact protocol that matches your specific genetic blueprint. But stay with me for this part. There is one critical factor, nothing to do with the letters on your blood type card, that determines whether any of this actually works for you. I'll reveal it toward the end, and I promise, it reframes everything. In a few weeks from now, you could be using your blood type the way elite physicians use genetic profiling, understanding precisely which risks are quietly building in your body and exactly what to do about each one. Right now, most people do the opposite. They follow generic health advice written for the average human, which biologically speaking, does not actually exist. Your neighbor is type O. You might be type A. The protocols that protect him could be entirely wrong for you. Nobody is telling you this. Let me fix that. Blood type by blood type. Type O. The genetic blueprint of the original human. Type O is the oldest blood type on the planet. It emerged approximately 50,000 years ago in early hunter-gatherer populations, and it carries a cardiovascular advantage that modern medicine is only beginning to properly quantify. Here is the mechanism. Type O blood contains lower levels of a clotting protein called von Willebrand factor. Less clotting activity means blood flows more freely through your vessels. Think of it as natural lubrication for your entire cardiovascular system. The pipes stay open, the pressure stays manageable, the risk of blockage stays consistently lower than in any other blood type. That Harvard study found type O individuals carry a 20% lower risk of coronary heart disease compared to all other blood types. That is not a marginal difference. That is structural protection built into your biology at birth. And there is more. Early type O populations show measurable resistance to malaria because the malaria parasite binds less effectively to type O red blood cells. This advantage is still detectable in the immune profile of type O individuals today, thousands of years later. So type O starts with a significant advantage, but there is a vulnerability that almost nobody talks about. And if you are type O, you need to hear this clearly. Your stomach. The bacterium, Helicobacter pylori, the primary cause of stomach ulcers, chronic gastritis, and a significant contributor to gastric cancer risk, attaches far more easily to type O stomach lining than to any other blood type. The surface receptors on type O stomach cells are, quite simply, more accessible to this particular bacterium. Type O individuals are statistically more susceptible to H. pylori colonization, and they recover more slowly from gastrointestinal infections. Here is the part that surprises most people. H. pylori does not announce itself. There is no dramatic pain in the beginning, no obvious warning. It colonizes silently, and over years, sometimes over decades, it erodes the protective mucus layer of the stomach. By the time symptoms appear, the damage has often been building for a very long time. And because type O individuals are more susceptible to colonization, they are also the group most likely to have been living with it undetected. If you are type O and have never been tested for H. pylori, that is the first conversation to have with your physician. It is a simple breath test or stool antigen test, inexpensive, straightforward, and for type O individuals, genuinely important. Here is your type O protocol. Physical activity is not optional for you. It is genetic necessity. Type O carries the highest baseline dopamine and noradrenaline of any blood type. Your nervous system was literally built for movement. Without regular physical output, these neurochemicals have nowhere to go. Restlessness, irritability, disrupted sleep, and over time, metabolic disruption. 30 minutes of walking daily and resistance training twice a week will do more for your long-term health than most supplements combined. Protect your gut actively. Limit NSAIDs, ibuprofen, aspirin, unless medically required. These drugs irritate stomach lining in anyone, but in type O individuals, that irritation lands on tissue that is already more vulnerable. Add fermented foods to your weekly routine. Kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, 2 to 3 servings per week measurably supports your gut microbiome against bacterial imbalance. And be more cautious than the average person about food hygiene, especially when traveling and with undercooked proteins. Your gastrointestinal recovery is genuinely slower. Respect that. Type O. Strongest cardiovascular protection on the planet. Most vulnerable gut. Keep moving. Guard your stomach, and your genetic advantage does the rest. Now, I want to ask you something. If you already know your blood type, write it in the comments right now. Just the letter. I read every comment on this channel, and the pattern of who watches this content genuinely fascinates me. Type A emerged roughly 20,000 years ago as human populations shifted from hunting to agriculture. Closer settlements, shared food sources, far greater social density. The immune system evolved to handle new viral threats aggressively, and it does. Type A mounts some of the strongest immune responses against viral infections of any blood type. In younger years, that is a real advantage. But here is the price. Type A blood has statistically higher coagulation activity, stickier platelets, more active clotting factors. A major study published in Circulation, one of the world's leading cardiology journals, found that Type A individuals carry a 23% higher risk of heart attack compared to Type O. And there is a second layer that makes this even more significant. Type A has the highest baseline cortisol level of all blood types. Cortisol is your stress hormone. In short bursts, it sharpens focus and mobilizes energy. But chronically elevated, running high day after day, year after year, it inflames arterial walls, disrupts sleep, impairs insulin sensitivity, and accelerates cognitive aging. Here is the specific mechanism that matters most. Cortisol directly damages the endothelium, the thin inner lining of your blood vessels. When cortisol runs chronically high, this lining becomes inflamed and less elastic, like rubber that has lost its give. And when your platelets are already stickier than average, those inflamed vessel walls become the exact surface those platelets cling to. That combination, chronically elevated stress hormone, on top of higher coagulation activity, is precisely what makes Type A cardiovascular risk so addressable through lifestyle. You can modify both variables. Most Type A individuals never realize that managing daily stress is not a soft wellness habit. It is direct cardiovascular intervention. I had a patient, 54 years old, healthy weight, non-smoker, genuinely active. His heart attack came on a Tuesday morning after a brutal month at work. Cortisol had been running at crisis levels for weeks on end. His platelets did exactly what they were genetically programmed to do. That is Type A, unmanaged, in a high-stress environment. The brutal irony of this blood type is exactly this. Your immune system fights hard, but your stress biology runs hot. And that heat, compounding over decades, cost you significantly. Here is your Type A protocol. Blood pressure monitoring every 6 months, not once a year. Cortisol-driven vascular pressure builds silently in Type A individuals, and catching it early is the entire game. Build a daily cortisol reset ritual. This does not have to be meditation, though that works well. 10 minutes without your phone. 4 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale. Done consistently every morning. What matters most is consistency, not duration. 5 minutes every single day outperforms 1 hour on weekends by a significant margin, because cortisol regulation is a daily biological process, not a weekly event. For Type A, this is not wellness theater. It is preventive cardiology. And this is the one most physicians miss. Ask your doctor to check your homocysteine levels at your next blood panel. Type A tends toward elevated homocysteine, an amino acid that, when high, actively damages the inner lining of arteries. The fix is simple: folate, B12, B6, dark leafy greens, eggs, legumes. Consistent, inexpensive, and directly targeted at your genetic weakness. Type A. Powerful immunity, elevated cardiac risk, high stress baseline. Manage cortisol like it is your most important health metric, because for your blood type, it genuinely is. Type B. The metabolic generalist. Type B appeared approximately 15,000 years ago among nomadic populations moving across Central Asia and the Himalayas. Constant movement, constantly shifting food environments. The body adapted by developing the most metabolically flexible immune system of any blood type, and that flexibility is genuinely impressive. Type B can efficiently process animal proteins, fermented dairy, grains, and a wide range of plant foods without the inflammatory response that other blood types sometimes produce. One week eating salmon and yogurt, the next week lentils and eggs. Your biology handles both without complaint, adapting as needed. This is your superpower. But here's what that same flexible immune system does when pushed too hard. It overshoots. Type B individuals show statistically elevated rates of autoimmune conditions, situations where the immune system loses precision and begins targeting the body's own tissues. Rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, certain forms of inflammatory bowel disease. These are not rare edge cases. They affect a significant number of men in their 50s and 60s, and they frequently go undiagnosed for years because the early signals, fatigue, joint stiffness, mild digestive irregularity, are so easily attributed to normal aging. If you are type B and have been dismissing those signals as just getting older, it is worth taking a much closer look. The modern food environment is, for type B, a calibration problem. Refined sugars, processed seed oils, ultra-processed foods, these do not just deliver empty calories. They trigger systemic inflammation that progressively distorts immune precision over time. For type B specifically, certain corn-based products and heavily processed wheat appear to create a particularly disruptive inflammatory response. This is not about eliminating entire food categories obsessively. It is about recognizing which inputs your immune system reads as threat signals and reducing them deliberately. Here is your type B protocol. Get your C-reactive protein, CRP, checked annually. This is your primary inflammatory marker. A consistent reading above 1 milligram per liter without a clear infection cause means your immune system is running hot, and you need to find the trigger. That conversation belongs with your physician. Reduce processed foods aggressively. I know every health video says this, but for type B specifically, this is genetic instruction, not generic advice. Your immune system genuinely processes these inputs differently. Act accordingly. Embrace your metabolic flexibility by rotating your food sources. This is your biological design. Variety is not just tolerable for type B, it is optimal. And for exercise, moderate sustained movement works best. Cycling, swimming, hiking. High-intensity training without adequate recovery tends to spike inflammatory markers in type B individuals more sharply than in other blood types. Type B, the most adaptable metabolism on the planet. Keep the immune system calibrated, and it protects you brilliantly. Type AB, the newest human blueprint, and the one that carries the most urgent warning for anyone watching this over 50. Type AB is the youngest blood type in human history. It appeared approximately 1,000 years ago as type A and type B populations mixed. In evolutionary terms, that is extraordinarily recent. It inherited immune tolerance from both sides. Type AB produces fewer inflammatory immune reactions to foreign cells, which translates to lower risk of certain gastrointestinal and gastric cancers. Genuinely protective in that domain. Type AB individuals carry an 82% higher risk of cognitive decline and memory impairment compared to type O. 82%. Let that number sit for a moment. The mechanism is cerebral microcirculation. Type AB's coagulation profile creates subtle, cumulative changes in blood flow through the brain's smallest vessels over decades. Not large, dramatic blockages, micro changes happening silently in vessels smaller than a human hair, building year after year. The result is a gradual reduction in the efficiency of blood flow to specific brain regions, particularly those responsible for memory formation and executive function. Small vessel disease is one of the primary drivers of age-related cognitive decline, including vascular dementia. And here is the critical thing about small vessel disease. It is largely addressable through exactly the same habits that protect your cardiovascular system. The two problems share the same solution, which means every choice you make for your heart is also a choice you are making for your brain. I want to be precise here. This is elevated statistical risk, not a predetermined outcome. But it is a clear signal, and it comes with a clear action plan. Here is your type AB protocol. Brain health and cardiovascular health are the same thing for you. What damages your heart's vessels also damages your brain's vessels. Blood pressure control, blood sugar regulation, cholesterol management. These are your primary cognitive protection strategy, not just cardiac ones. Omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA, directly support cerebral blood flow and reduce neuroinflammation. DHA is incorporated into the cell membranes of your neurons. It keeps those membranes fluid and responsive. When DHA levels are low, neuronal communication becomes less efficient, and the inflammatory signals that contribute to small vessel damage face less biological opposition. 2 servings of fatty fish per week, salmon, mackerel, sardines, or discuss a quality fish oil supplement with your physician. Sleep is non-negotiable for type AB. During deep sleep, your brain's glymphatic system activates and clears amyloid plaques, the protein deposits associated with Alzheimer's disease. Think of it as your brain's overnight cleaning crew. When you sleep under 6 hours, that crew does not finish the job, and the residue accumulates. Type AB individuals who consistently sleep under 6 hours show accelerated cognitive markers in long-term studies. 7 to 8 hours, every night. For your blood type, this is your single most important daily health behavior. And challenge your brain deliberately and consistently. A new language, a musical instrument, complex analytical reading. Cognitive reserve is real. Neural redundancy built through genuine intellectual challenge compensates for the subtle circulation changes your blood type may create over time. Type AB, remarkable immune tolerance, and a brain that needs active, intentional defense. Starting now, not at 70. Now let's cover the factor that half of all blood type discussions completely skip. The RH factor. That plus or minus after your blood type letter. Approximately 85% of people are RH positive. The remaining 15% are RH negative. And the difference matters more than most people realize. RH positive individuals appear to carry slightly higher baseline resistance to certain persistent ancient infections. The Rh antigen plays a meaningful role in how the immune system recognizes long-standing pathogens. For Rh negative individuals, current research points to a subtly different cytokine profile, meaning the immune system's chemical signaling operates at a different baseline calibration. Different does not mean stronger or weaker. It means different. Some Rh negative individuals show a heightened sensitivity to inflammatory triggers, which means that regardless of your primary blood type letter, if you are Rh negative and manage any chronic inflammatory condition, the anti-inflammatory protocols I described above become even more relevant for your specific profile. For pregnancy, and this is medically critical, Rh negative women carrying an Rh positive baby require Rh immunoglobulin treatment to prevent immune conflict between mother and child. This is established, well-understood medicine. If this applies to you or someone you care for, it requires medical supervision without exception. Know your complete blood type, not just the letter, the Rh factor too. And make sure your physician has both, on record, in context. Now, stop. I need you to hear this next part carefully, because this is where most health content completely fails you. Everything I have shared today, the type O cardiovascular advantage, the type A cortisol problem, the type AB brain risk, all of it is statistically real. It comes from large, peer-reviewed, long-term population studies. But here is what those same studies also show. For at least 50% of people, blood type alone predicts almost nothing about their individual outcome. Genes load the gun. Habits pull the trigger. I have seen type A patients with immaculate cardiovascular health in their 70s because they walked every day, managed stress consistently, slept 7 hours, ate with intention. Their stickier platelets never became a clinical problem. I have seen type O patients with severe gastric disease because they spent 30 years ignoring every signal their body gave them. And I've seen type AB patients in their 70s with sharper cognitive function than men 15 years younger. Not because their genetics were somehow different, because they treated their blood type as a roadmap, not a verdict. They slept 8 hours. They ate fatty fish twice a week. They kept their blood pressure consistently below 120/80. They kept learning genuinely new things, deliberately, year after year. The biological risk was still real. The statistical profile still applied to them. They simply chose to address it systematically. long before it became a crisis. That gap between genetic risk and actual outcome is precisely where your choices live. The research does not say type AB patients will develop dementia. It says type AB patients carry a statistically higher risk, and risk is a probability, not a sentence. The man who hears he is type A and says, "I am just built for stress, that is my nature," and does nothing, is using this information as an excuse. The man who hears he is type A and says, "Cortisol is my primary risk factor. Here is my specific daily protocol, and I am monitoring my blood pressure every 6 months," is using it as a tool. Same genes, completely different futures. That is the lever you hold right now, today. Here is your summary. Type O, protect your gut. Get tested for H. pylori if you have not already. Move consistently and honor your cardiovascular strength. Type A, cortisol management is cardiovascular medicine for you. Take it as seriously as any prescription and check your homocysteine at your next blood panel. Type B, control inflammation. Monitor your CRP annually, rotate your food sources, and embrace your metabolic flexibility. Type AB, cardiovascular health is brain health. Sleep, omega-3s, consistent blood pressure control, and deliberate cognitive challenge are your core protocol. Regardless of your letter, know your RH factor, and make sure your physician does too. One last question before you go. What is your blood type? And does the profile I described today match what you have actually experienced in your own health? Write it in the comments. I genuinely read them, and what comes up in replies regularly shapes the topics I cover next. If you have been dealing with high blood pressure or persistent fatigue for years and want to understand the 3 most commonly missed root causes in men over 45, I covered that in depth in another video. The link is in the description. Take care of yourself. You only get one body. And now you know a little more about exactly how yours works.